Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again for the ace match in the MTW Dimaga game versus Roxkiss Pomi, or just Pomi of the team something. I cannot remember it. Once again, it is a Russian pro gaming team, and this is from the IEM Kiev Arena. No, not Arena. What is it? MLG Kiev Global Challenge is what it is. It is a best of 5. Pomi went up with a quick 2-0 lead. Dimaga brought it back with 2 wins of his own. Now we are in the 5th game of the series, and I am so excited, guys, because these last 2 games have been very interesting. It seems like Dimaga, it seems like as long as he doesn't try to go for Mutalisks, he's more or less fine, and he is indeed spamming, clicking very quickly over here, and he sees, alright, he's not there, he must be over here. This is going to be on ESL Metalopolis, which is a, I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but we see there's no neutral supply depot, so it might be only cross spawns. It's probably cross versus, cross or close air would be the more likely choice, but I knew there are maps that are only cross spawn. And it's going to be very interesting to see what these players do in these 2 games, because the first game, Pomi went for just basically a hard counter to the Mutalisk. Dimaga tried his best, but he just lost because he was going for the Spire tech. It just kind of threw him off. The second game, Pomi just went for a timing push. He killed Dimaga. The 3rd game, he went for a timing push. Dimaga killed him. The 4th game, he went for macro. Dimaga killed him. So it's interesting. It seems like these 2 players have fairly evenly matched, obviously, because they are in the 5th game of best of 5, and Dimaga once again is going to be hiding that drone, going to be getting up the hatchery very quickly, no blockage by Pomi, and he cannot be happy about that. It's just a little bit of an annoyance. This is like, oh, you sneaky drone. But again, he's not going to be cannoning out, because he's going for possibly that, as I like to call it, not forge fast expand again, just because what he seems to do, what he did last game and almost the game before, is he gets his gateway and cybercore, and then he throws down a pylon and a forge and his nexus. So it's very interesting. It's like a 1 gate expand with a forge, I guess is what you would almost call it. And Pomi just keeping this guy here, checking for the timing on the 3rd, which tells me he will probably be doing it again. Yes, there it is, because he wouldn't need to check 3rd timings if he didn't want to expand himself. We have 4 Zerglings on the field from Dimaga. The expansion about 3, just a little bit over 11/15 of the way done. Let's go with that. And Dimaga is just droning up a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what kind of game we have here. Both players, well, you often see when you get to, say, the 3rd game in a best of 3, something like that, the game where a player has the chance to close out a series, he'll just go for some kind of ridiculous all-in cheesy thing, just because it's like, you know, if I lose, I get more chances. If I win, it will be an easy game. I'll be more well-rested for the next ones. So we'll have to see, will anybody do anything like that? We see Pomi is going to be going for a little zealot stalker pressure, but looks like no, he's going to be throwing down an expansion. And it looks like they will both be going for a macro game again, unless Dimaga chooses to go for some crazy 2-base, I don't even know, 2-base Ultralisk and Nidus Worm timing. That would be pretty sweet. I'd love to see that work in a high-level StarCraft 2 tournament. That would be awesome. We do have a Zealot Stalker pressure, very standard, coming out from Pomi, but his queens are done. Dimaga has 3 queens coming out, getting the inject. The 3rd can be for creep tumors. It can also be for you know, injecting the 3rd, all that stuff. Once that 3rd is coming down, which I would not be surprised to see soon, we see Dimaga, of course, with the hovering 300 resources. And that is not because of bad macro or anything like that. It's just a lot of times when you first get up these expansions, you don't have enough larva to really spend all of your money, just because it's just kind of the way it works to Zerg. I know recently I played some 4v4 stuff like that, when, because of the way things work out, because we get rushed or whatever, I'm confined to 1 base, and I just have like 1,000 minerals constantly, because I actually don't know how to spend it. I guess macro hatches are probably a good thing. But Dimaga says, why grab a macro hatch when you can grab a 3rd base? Pomi is going to see the exact timing on it. Dimaga's probably like, well, that's dumb, because these Zerglings ran right past the probe. So they did not attack, but we do see the creep spread starting out for Dimaga. And soon we'll be seeing what kind of tech Pomi wants to be going for. Does he have Warp Gate? Yes, he does, because this is just currently not a Warp Gate. I'm sure it will be. Momentarily, I was just kind of confused, because I did not see it in the production tab. So I was saying, alright, well, either Pomi's not getting it, or there's a reason that's not a warp gate, which I'm sure it will be any second now. And we'll get to see he does have a third gas on the way, so to me this says chances are he will be going for a little bit of a tech heavier play, maybe something with a robo, maybe a Stargate if he wants to mass up a little bit. But it'd be interesting. He'll be throwing that down in just a second, I'm sure, probably as soon as he has enough gas. And there we see him throwing down 2 more gateways. So he could be going for a similar 4 or 5 gate robo push. We will have to see. And Dimaga going for that trusty Roach build. Now, this is something I've noticed. Of course, mutas are kind of the metagame, as I've said, against Protoss these days. But Dimaga, every game he has gone for these roaches, he just has won. And actually very interesting, taking the 2 gases at his main after his natural, or at least one of the gases at his main after his natural. This might have just been something, he threw them both down here just so maybe he could trick out Pomi a little bit, and Pomi Scout says, oh, he has 2 gases here, he must have 4 going for big tech, when in reality he just has 3. And especially when you're still getting your eco up a little bit, 3 gas on 3 bases for roaches can be very good. Of course, again, that's only when you're still making drones, stuff like that. Then you probably want to get a 4th, especially if you want upgrades and stuff. It looks like Dimaga will be going for that big roach play, and perfect timing because we do see a very sentry-heavy gateway push coming out from Pomi. And for once, he does not have the warp prism with it to act as its own proxy pylon. New crazy reinforcement. Going with the more traditional method of just actually having a proxy pylon present. And we have a lot of sentries here, and Dimaga had a lot of success previously with just sniping the sentries constantly, whittling down the numbers, which eventually just it proved too much for Pomi. He lost too much gas. He could not effectively control the map space, control the Zerglings. There's just too much damage, so Pomi going for this push again, but this is the kind of push Dimaga crushed the past 2 games. Past 2 games, more or less. And this is potentially very scary for Dimaga. But again, a great force field is coming out from Pomi. That is something he's been very consistent with. Getting good positioning, but he's still stuck on the ramp. The Zergling's getting in, doing a decent amount of damage to these sentries. It looks like one of them might go down. Yes, it does. And there's a lot of roaches, and great force field. So once again, we look at the production tab. Dimaga has 15 roaches in the production tab. Burrow is 5 seconds from completing, and this could be it for Pomi. If Burrow completes, he has no way to get detection. He has no robo or anything, and there's the Burrow from Dimaga. We'll have to see, is Pomi going to start a robo or anything like that? No, he just is make more stalkers. So the roaches are going to be doing a lot of damage, microing them back, but it looks like the numbers of Pomi's army are significantly dwindling. He's behind by about 20 supply, but that's remained fairly consistent the whole battle. And it looks like Dimaga is pushing back Pomi a little bit, getting a nice concave on those roaches. He needs to unburrow this one. But it's one of those situations where, and he's doing some nice burrow micro. Just whenever a roach gets low, he burrows it, waits for that HP to regen. Of course, roaches do regain health very quickly while burrowed. Looks like they are going to be picking off all of the sentries. Now it is just 4 stalkers and a zealot remaining, warping in more zealots. But I don't know why he's making zealots. Zealots are not very good against the roaches. They do beat a roach one-on-one if the roach doesn't move. But generally, top-level players like to move their roaches. just a thought. And so it looks like Dimaga holding that very well. He has almost double the supply of Pomi, pushing out with these roaches, and Pomi's just kind of like, holy crap, I need to hold this, otherwise it is just going to end for me right here. We see Dimaga making 11 drones. He's up to 64 now, but not be surprised to see him making more. And as we've seen these past few games, throwing up a Spire once that attack is done. He says, alright, Pomi's probably going to be transitioning into Robo play, and dang on it, he is right. We see the Robo on the way, just finished up. We might see Immortals, we might see Colossi. Either way, the Spire tech can be very good, because of course Robo units don't shoot up, and Colossi are not very good against Corruptors, or I should say Corruptors are very good against Colossi in the right numbers. So Dimaga seeing if he can do any work, losing a few roaches. Again, pretty good force fields from Pomi. He has exhibited consistently good control of his units. But what has happened, the reason Dimaga has been able to overwhelm him with many of these pushes oftentimes is just because Dimaga has just had such good, powerful macro. We see 80 drones now, and he's done a very good job knowing exactly when to macro and when to make units. Because that's one of those things that's probably the hardest thing to learn as Zerg. because if he made, say, one more round of drone before the Protoss attacked, he would have been absolutely devastated by that push. And if he had not made enough drones, he would not have been able to make enough roaches to be in good shape. It looks like we do have Immortals coming out of Pomi right now, as well as Blink on the way. So what he is banking on is going for Blink Stalker Immortal, which is, of course, one of the hardest counters to roaches that you can come across in the game, more or less, except maybe Marauders, stuff like that. But the only thing with that is it's just not counting on Dimaga really getting other tech. But at this point, Pomi does not have a huge choice. Dimaga scouts. He sees the Twilight Council. He drops the Changeling. Does he see the Robo? No, it is back here. I do not think he saw that. We can actually check with the Changeling in just a second. And no, he has not seen that. But, of course, he is getting Infestors and Zerglings and Roaches. And that's the one thing with the Blink Stalkers. A combination of fungal growths and Zerglings will just kind of eat that composition for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a midnight snack. So that could potentially not be too great for Pomi. Both players kind of macroing up right now. We see Dimaga resting at that 80 drones that he loves so much, that all Zergs love to have. And Pomi not having quite as many workers as he previously had. That is because he's not been able to grab a third, just because he's forced to make so many units because that push failed. Normally, we have seen Pomi, he likes to get a third, and he likes to get about 70 to 80 probes, which can be very good for him. But this game, he's not only kind of falling behind on economy, he's falling behind on tech, and he's been forced to counter the one unit he knows for a fact Dimaga has, but this is a lot of Roaches and a lot of Zerglings. The +2 attack is just about to finish. We take a look at Pomi's upgrades. He's about to have the +2 attack finished, and he has a lot of Zealots, a lot of Immortals, a lot of Stalkers. But this is still a very scary composition. We have 5 Infestors on the way, as well as 11 Spine Crawlers, a bunch being made here and a bunch over here. The creep spread is insane from Dimaga, going all the way up here, all the way over here. He's just had one creep tumor on each path, but see, he will already know that, oh geez, there is a push coming. I'm not sure if he had Xel'Naga tower control, but he sees this. Of course, this is a good place for the Protoss just because he can warp in right there and reinforce right to down here, but it's still pretty far. And we see Dimaga getting his units with the Concave. The Infestors, where are you? There's one there. He's got 9 more in production. Oh my gosh, Dimaga. And I feel like this is probably not going to go very well at all for Pomi. We see Dimaga sending in those guys intentionally, maybe just getting a little, trying to size up the Protoss army. And we see all the Stalkers in the front, which he does blink them back. That is not ideal. Checking for the high yield, also just getting the high ground. Maybe doesn't want to attack into that formidable of a position. And it looks like he is going to be attacking right here, but he will be greeted by a whole bunch of Spines. And then he does blink those guys back. Dimaga repositioning. Looks like the engagement is going to be forced very soon. Dimaga running in with his Roaches and his Zerglings. Big Fungals coming off on the Zealots, and again, they are just not attacking. The Roaches getting a very good concave on this portion of the units, and a whole bunch of infested Terrans going down over here, which will eat up the damage and deal it. And oh my gosh, Dimaga just crushed Pomi's army. It looks like once again, the Immortals did some damage. They have 4 and 5 kills, but they are getting picked off now, focus fired. The infested Terrans, of course, also do quite a lot of damage versus all these units. I mean, they're just kind of like the Marines in a lot of ways, but they're Spine Crawlers on the high ground, on the low ground, a Fungal coming out from Dimaga, stopping these, and oh my gosh, the GG from Pomi. He is mined out in his main, almost mined out in his natural. He has no third, and he just lost the push. He was really all in at that point. Dimaga making a great comeback from losing the first 2 games to winning the final 3, showing us the power that is Roach Infestor still. Roach Infestor Corruptor in ZVP, even after all these nerfs, all the changes, it's still very successful. So I hope all of you guys enjoyed it. I'm exhausted, so I'm probably going to go rest for a bit, but I hope I did this best of 5 justice. You guys enjoyed. Again, just watch, share, subscribe, like my videos. Let me know in the comments what you think. I will be streaming that tournament fairly soon, and I'll start streaming in general fairly soon. Hopefully, I'll let you guys know the details about that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon.